You rolling? Here goes.
3, 2, 1, go!
Come on.
Oh, come on, Dolphin Surf. Oh, there goes a GoPro. GoPro down.
The Renault 5 is a brilliant small electric car, but our favourite version costs almost £27,000. And while that's very competitive compared with some rivals like the Mini Cooper Electric, it's still an awful lot of money for an awful lot of people.
Cars like the Dacia Spring and the Elite Motor eC3 are practically half the price. However, with their limited ranges and their cheap fit interiors, they're quite compromised.
So could this be the answer? It's the new BYD Dolphin Surf. It's bigger and better than those tiny EVs, but still cheaper than the likes of the Renault 5 and the Citroen eC3. So what's the best small, cheap electric car that you can buy? In this review, we're finding out. So Will, what's the plan?
Well, you are in the new BYD Dolphin Surf, I am in the Renault 5, and Dan is in the Citroen eC3. And we are going to compare this trio of small EVs in every area to find out what's the best small affordable electric car that you can buy today.
And considering these are three electric cars with pretty modest ranges, they're fairly small, presumably we aren't going to drive from London to Edinburgh, are we?
No, we're not, but although it's true that these cars will spend a lot of their lives doing shorter journeys, we still want to take them a little bit outside their comfort zones to get an idea of their real-world ranges and also their charging capabilities. So, we are starting at Twickenham in London, and we are heading to one of the closest surfing hotspots outside of the capital on the south coast. On that journey, we are going to be looking at these cars' interiors, we're going to be checking out their practicality, and we are even going to be doing a drag race.
Sounds good, but first, let's find out a little bit more about these three EVs.
So Dan, we have driven an eC3 before, haven't we?
We have, yes, but that was an early left-hand drive car, whereas this is the actual finished thing that you can buy in the UK. The range is really simple. There's one battery, which is 43.7 kilowatt hours, and the range is up to 199 miles. Two trims as well, which we love because it's very simple. Plus, which is the entry-level one, which is £22,095. And then this one, which is the Max in this standard colour, will cost you £23,795. But, Will, I'd like to know more about that Renault 5.
Well, yes, we are huge fans of this car, of course. It is our current car of the year. But until very recently, we'd only driven a comfort range version, and that has a 52 kilowatt hour battery and an official range of more than 250 miles. And it's brilliant, but it is also quite expensive compared with your eC3. It starts at £27,000. And that's why I have brought along an urban range. That has a smaller 40 kilowatt hour battery, and officially it's a few miles down in your car when it comes to range. This can do 193 miles on paper. Now the urban range starts at 22,995, but to make it a fairer comparison with your car when it comes to standard equipment, this is a mid-spec Techno version, and it costs £24,995. You actually get this metallic green paint as standard. In fact, the only thing you do have to pay extra for is that black roof. That costs an extra £400.
Well, with this new BYD Dolphin Surf, you also get metallic paint as standard. But Will, what colour would you call this?
Well, I'm guessing it's a trick question, but I would have to say yellow.
Dan?
I've been to Specsavers, that's yellow.
You're both wrong, because according to BYD, this metallic paint is lime green.
Okay, if I were to buy a fruit from a supermarket and it was that colour, I would assume it's a lemon.
Well, if I was at a traffic light, I'd go through it pretty carefully. But according to BYD, this is green, even though I would say that that's green.
That's purple, isn't it?
And your Renault is green, but this is surely yellow. Anyway, even though BYD might seem a little bit colourblind, this could be a very impressive new small electric car because it is comfortably cheaper than the other two EVs that we've got on this test if you go for an entry-level version. So an active Dolphin Surf starts at less than £19,000.
Wow.
The catch is you get a tiny battery, 30 kilowatt hours, and the official range is 137 miles, which is less than a Dacia Spring. So most people are going to want to at least go for a boost model, which gets a much bigger battery, 43.2 kilowatt hours. That bumps the range up to 200 miles, but that version's pretty slow. So 0 to 62 is done in 12.1 seconds. This is a range-topping comfort version, which gets the same bigger battery, but a more powerful electric motor at 150 brake horsepower, drops the 0 to 62 time down to 9.1 seconds. It also reduces the range a little bit, but still, this range-topping version of the Dolphin Surf is very, very similar to the range that's on offer in those two cars.
Okay, so the comfort version is the fast one, and the boost is the slow one.
That is correct, yes. So BYD is obviously confused when it comes to colours and names, but this most expensive version of this car is less money than your cheapest Renault 5.
By about £1,000 compared with this mid-spec Techno.
Yeah, indeed.
And is it just me, or does this look slightly like a Lamborghini Urus?
Well, yes, if you're getting shades of Lambo looking at this thing. There is a reason for that, because this was actually designed by a former Lamborghini designer.
I also need to ask, this BYD Dolphin Surf is nothing to do with the other BYD Dolphin.
Correct. The names are very similar, but they're two completely different cars. This is obviously much smaller and is up against a different set of rivals, and it's cheaper as well. The range isn't quite so far as that other car. This Dolphin Surf is a different thing altogether. And in other markets, it's called the Dolphin Mini. In China, it's the BYD Seagull, but we don't really like seagulls, particularly over here, so it's the Dolphin Surf instead.
Okay.
But anyway, it looks competitive on price.
It does.
And in terms of everything else that it could offer, but is it actually any good? And is it the best of the three?
Let's find out.
Right, so we've taken the Dolphin Surf and its rivals to one of the surfing spots closest to London, which is still quite a drive, but we've made it, and now we're going to take a closer look at the interiors of these cars. So we'll start with the Renault, because this is the car to beat, isn't it?
It is. Really nice interior, I think, particularly when you take into account the price point. So this is a mid-spec Techno version. It gets this denim on the dashboard, on the insides of the doors, on the seats as well. It's not actually denim because it's made from recycled bottles rather than cotton, but it feels reasonably nice, doesn't it?
It does, it does. And it all looks really good as well.
It does, and feels well made. Okay, there are some hard plastics around, but again, I think given the price point this car is in and the class that it's in, it feels really quite nice inside.
And the infotainment system is very impressive, isn't it?
That is, again, one of the best infotainment systems around for this budget. You get a Google-based system if you go for Techno trim, which is this car, or above if you go for the entry-level model, then you don't get that. But effectively, you get Google Maps navigation, you get smartphone mirroring as well. It's really easy to use.
And physical controls for the air conditioning.
That is always good, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So if I want to adjust the temperature, I don't have to swipe around on a touchpad or use the touchscreen. I just go like that.
So this car basically nails everything that you'd want it to up front. But there is one weakness, isn't there?
There is one big
Yeah,
weakness.
it's pretty tight back here. Knee room is very tight. I've got hardly any foot room, and headroom is the smallest of the lot, for sure.
Yeah, but Dan, look at this finish on the ceiling there.
This is very nice.
That is inspired by the original Renault 5, and it makes up for the lack of space, I think.
Okay, let's go and see how this all compares in the Citroen.
Let's go.
So we're in the Citroen now, and it's much better back here than the Renault 5. Loads more headroom, loads more knee room, and loads more foot space as well.
No competition in the back, is
No
there?
competition. In the front, however, it's not quite as good.
It does feel like a step down in here compared to the Renault, doesn't it?
It does. It's not terrible. There is some fabric on the dashboard of this range-topping Max version. There is also some piano black plastic on the centre console there, but it just feels built to a budget a bit more, doesn't it?
It's not as classy as the Renault. And if this was thousands of pounds cheaper, you'd go, okay, that's impressive, but for the same money, the Renault is definitely stronger up front, even if it's not as spacious in the back.
It is.
It's great to see you've still got physical controls for the air conditioning though.
They are good, but the location of them, I don't know about you, but I find them quite low down. They're a bit of a reach, and also because of the rim of the steering wheel, I can't actually see them without sort of poking my head out to the side. So not ideal, and actually the driving position in general, you've got quite a small steering wheel that feels a little bit odd.
It is odd, isn't it?
I can see that driver display behind, but it just doesn't feel as well thought out, the arrangement in here.
No. And the infotainment system?
Is very simple, I think is the best word.
Okay.
So because this is a Max, you have got built-in sat-nav, but it's just a Citroen nav. It's not as good as the Google system in the Renault. And it's just not as intuitive as a whole, the system.
It doesn't look as nice either, does it? But you do get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so it's not the end of the world. Right, shall we see what the Dolphin Surf is like inside? Okay, so the Dolphin Surf now, and up front, this is closer to the Renault 5 than it is to the eC3, certainly. So you've got quite a nice colour scheme in here, And also it's going to look like this whether you go for the very cheapest model or this most expensive one, which is good. And this material's quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels a bit like wetsuit material.
It does.
Maybe a nod to the surfing vibe there.
Perhaps. And you've also got a lot of storage up front in the Dolphin Surf, more so than the other cars.
You definitely do. You've got a couple of cup holders up here with a wireless phone charging pad if you go for the range stopping version, which you have here. And also, look at the size of this tray down here.
Yeah, really handy cubby area down there. And other good things about this interior include having these rocker switches up here, which are physical controls. And it's great, you've got the gear selector very close to hand, nice and high up on the dashboard there.
Not as close to hand as you have in the Renault.
That is true.
It is literally by your hand.
That is true. And it's also a shame that, yes, you've got these buttons, but none of them let you very simply adjust the temperature or the fan speed.
No, you can just turn the aircon off and on, can't you?
But to adjust the temperature or the fan speed, you've got to use this touchscreen infotainment system or the voice control.
But you don't have climate control on this car, do you?
You don't. So you can't set the temperature to 21 degrees, for example. Instead, you have to choose between H6 or L3, which takes a bit of getting used to. And luckily, the fan speed is just numbered and a lot easier to get your head around.
Yeah, it's a bit of a faff, isn't it? I found L7 was about right for me.
Fine.
I don't know what that is.
Fine.
But,
Thankfully, BYD has given you a shortcut to adjust the temperature and the fan speed. You take 3 fingers on the screen there, swipe up and down for the temperature, and across for the fan speed, which is good that they've given you that. However, it would all just be simpler if you had physical buttons down here to adjust that.
it would. The other two cars do offer that, don't they?
Absolutely. The screen itself, though, is pretty good. 10.1 inches in size. It's easy to see. It's reasonably responsive, but it is a shame that some of these icons are quite small, but you get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard, which is great.
You don't get Google-based nav, do you?
You don't, not like Renault, but you can swivel this screen like this. However, you can't run smartphone mirroring in that portrait layout, so it's basically useless.
It's a
because
gimmick.
most people are just going to have it in this landscape running Google Maps off their smartphone, aren't they?
It's a bit silly.
The digital display, though, is easy to see. The graphics are pretty good either side of the screen in the middle, but that screen is actually on the low-res side, doesn't look particularly nice, kind of like the graphics in the Citroen eC3. And again, the Renault 5 is just more polished in the tech that it offers inside.
Yeah, I do find that easy to see, but the driving position, there's not a lot of lower back support. You don't get adjustable lumbar support on any of these cars, but there is just a little bit more support for your lower back as standard in the Renault.
And it does feel like you're sat higher up in this Dolphin Surf.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's trying to be an SUV or whether you're sitting on a battery, but you feel lower down and more part of the car in the Renault than you do in the Citroen and this Dolphin Surf. What about the back?
So it sits in between the other two, to be honest. So headroom is more than the Renault, but slightly less than the Citroen. There's slightly more knee room in here than in the Citroen. But I have noticed there's only 2 seats back here.
Yes, very good point. This is the only car of the 3 that we have here to only offer seating for 4. The others are 5-seaters.
That is true, but you probably wouldn't want to fit 3 adults in the back of the other 2 cars, particularly the Renault. On the plus side as well, you do get ISOFIX mounts on the rear seats, but also on the front passenger seat. You don't get that on the other 2 cars.
You do, 3 in total, which is handy.
That can be.
So, come on then, build quality, it's the Renault, isn't it?
It is the Renault.
Technology,
Infotainment system's definitely best in the Renault.
driving position,
The Renault,
rear space,
definitely not the Renault.
but it is still, so far, the small electric car to beat, isn't it?
It does seem that way.
But this isn't a million miles away. So we've covered about 140 miles today, and what we're doing now is getting a quick top up to give us a head start tomorrow because we've got a drag race coming up. We don't want to run out on the runway.
We don't.
And we are going to charge to 80%, and we're going to time how long it takes to do that. So Will, what did you arrive here on?
I arrived here with 17% of my battery and an indicated range of 37 miles.
Okay, Dan?
I had 19% and 32 miles.
Well, I got here in the Dolphin Surf with 29% of my battery remaining and an indicated range of 57 miles.
Wow,
So comfortably better than you two.
does look like that has the best range then.
It does, even though it kind of shouldn't on paper. But how long are we going to be sat here charging? What's the maximum speeds that we can accept?
Well, mine has the slowest peak charging rate of 80 kilowatts.
Okay,
Mine's 100 kilowatts.
100, okay, and mine's 85 kilowatts.
Okay, it'd be quite interesting because I think on paper all of them have got slightly different sized batteries, take around half an hour to go from 10 to 80% in ideal conditions.
Sure.
But let's find out what they actually do in the real world.
Yeah, let's see.
Go.
Despite having the fastest official charging speed, the Citroen took 39 minutes to go from 19 to 80%. That means an average charging rate of just 42 kilowatts. There wasn't much in it between the Renault 5 and the BYD, but the BYD arriving on a higher state of charge got from 29 to 80% in 25 minutes. That means an average charging rate of 59 kilowatts. The Renault 5 topped up to the same amount from 17% in 28 minutes, averaging 54 kilowatts. After an overnight stop, we began day 2 by taking a closer look at the boots.
Okay, so the Renault 5 on paper has the smallest boot, 277 litres, but I managed to fit 4 carry-on suitcases in there, which I think isn't bad at all, very neatly. There is also some underfloor storage for the charging cable. The only annoying thing is that there is quite a big lip at the boot entrance there, as you can see. If you need to carry more, you can fold down those rear seats and they split in a 60-40 arrangement. So overall, I'd say not terrible, but what about that Seagull?
Well, in this green car over here, I've actually got a secret weapon. You have underfloor storage, probably enough for the charging cables. I have underfloor storage, enough for an entire suitcase under there, which is massive. And then on top, I can fit 4. Which means I can get 5 in here in total, 1 extra one over the Renault 5. Yes, I do have a slight advantage because I don't have a parcel shelf. So perhaps it's cheating, but still, at a glance, this boot looks pretty unconventional in the space that it offers you because these seats come quite far back towards the top. It's an awkward angle. You have got a bit of a loading lip as well, but ultimately, massive underfloor storage, and the space on top is still more decent than you'd expect looking at it.
Okay, and you can fold down the rear seats?
You can, but this is only a 4-seater, as we've said, so they split fold 50-50, and you can throw them back pretty easily from here. But it's the Citroen that has the biggest boot on paper, isn't it?
It does. I've got a whole extra 2 litres, 310 litres.
Okay.
But there are some downsides. So again, it's quite a big lip and there's no adjustable boot floor. And also, unlike those, I have no underfloor storage either, so there's nowhere to put the cables.
Okay.
The rear seats do split 60-40 if you need more space, which is very handy. And I can fit 5 carrying suitcases, and a lot easier than putting them in the back of that BYD.
That is true. It looks like you've got more space overall in here.
Yeah, enough for the charging cable.
So is this the most practical boot of the 3?
It's got to be, hasn't it?
I think so. Should we get back on the road?
Let's do it. So the Renault 5 might not be the most practical small car, but I'm happy to report that this urban range version, which we haven't driven before, is just as brilliant to drive as the more expensive comfort range. It feels like a more grown-up expensive car than it really is. It actually has more sophisticated rear suspension than the other 2 cars here. So it isn't the softest suspension in the world, but it is extremely well controlled, deals with all types of bumps very well indeed. Like I say, feels like a more expensive car. And that also transcends into the handling. So there isn't much body lean through corners, plenty of grip. The steering is quite light in comfort mode, but if you switch to sport, you get a bit more weight, and that gives you extra confidence and allows you to have a bit more fun through the corners. The only slight complaint I have is that this car does have quite big 18-inch alloys, and that means there is quite a lot of tyre noise when you're driving along on the motorway. You might be able to hear it in the background, and I'm only doing 50 at the moment. But overall, particularly given the standards of the small electric car class, this is absolutely brilliant to drive.
Things in the Citroen are quite different. The suspension is a lot softer. In fairness, that does mean it deals with potholes quite nicely, but it also means it doesn't have as good body control. And over undulating roads, you move around in your seat a lot more. You feel that too when it comes to handling. On a country road, this leans a lot more than the other 2. The steering is very light and doesn't really give you any idea what the front wheels are up to, which isn't great because there isn't that much front end grip on these Linglong tyres.
Now, the Dolphin Surf it kind of fits in between the other two cars once again, because it's not as soft as the eC3, but the body control isn't as tight as it is in the Renault 5. This definitely isn't an uncomfortable car though. And if you're on the motorway, on a flat bit of road, then it's actually pretty settled, more so than an eC3. And it's also quieter in here than it is in the Renault 5. But it's over road imperfections where this car can trip up in a way that the Renault 5 doesn't and remains pretty unflustered over any road surface. In terms of the handling, this again is sharper, doesn't feel as wallowy as the eC3 around a corner, but it's definitely not as satisfying to drive and it doesn't feel as dynamic as the Renault 5 on the road. But this definitely isn't a bad thing to drive. And remember, the Renault 5 sets a very, very high bar. So if this isn't as good as that car on the road, that isn't an embarrassment for the Dolphin Surf. The brake pedal in all three cars could be better though. So if you want to stop smoothly, it does require quite a lot of concentration because the brake pedals can be a bit grabby and inconsistent in the way that they respond to your inputs, which is a shame for small EVs like this. But what we really need to find out now is which is the quickest.
Right, it is the moment you've all been waiting for, the most important aspect of electric car ownership, of course, and that is which is fastest in a drag race. I have a quarter of a mile of empty tarmac ahead of me that is slightly up a hill to add a bit of jeopardy into the mix, and on paper, I should win this because this car can officially do 0 to 62 in 9 seconds.
But while this is officially at least fractionally slower from 0 to 62 than that Renault 5, the Dolphin Surf has a lot more power. The electric motor in this car offers 154 brake horsepower, whereas in the Renault 5, it's 121 brake horsepower. So, I wonder what will actually happen here.
Things aren't looking particularly promising for me in the Citroen. It has the least horsepower, 111 brake horsepower, and also the slowest 0 to 62 time, which is 10.4 seconds. However, this was also supposed to be the fastest to charge yesterday, and it was the slowest. So you never know, if the numbers are the wrong way around, it might just be the fastest one here, so fingers crossed.
3, 2, 1, go!
Come on, I'm off the line, I'm ahead!
So slow off the line.
I'm winning!
And... they're gone.
Come on, this green car is quicker than that one. Come on, Dolphin Surf. Oh, there goes a GoPro. GoPro down!
Just disappeared.
I can't see the Dolphin. Oh no, it's coming through, it's coming through, it's going to be incredibly tight, incredibly tight! Oh, I don't know.
Surely that was me. Surely that was me. Even with a poor getaway, the Dolphin Surf somehow defied the official figures and just beat the Renault 5. But we decided to line up again to see if a better launch would make the result more conclusive.
Okay, so here we go. 3, 2, 1, go!
Come on. Yes, I think I've got him on the line.
Oh, I think I've got the Renault 5 now.
I can see the Citroen. It's, oh no.
I've got him.
That Dolphin, how is it so quick? It's not supposed to be that quick on paper. This has a faster 0 to 60 time.
Across the line.
Trounced. Again. They were so far ahead.
I went for a Will Nightingale start there.
What, you mean actually on go rather than half a second later? You'd cause a pile-up at the starting grid of a Formula 1 race.
That's true. Okay, so let's run through those numbers now. And as you saw, the BYD Dolphin Surf, with a better start, crossed the line first, and it covered 0 to 60 miles an hour in 8 seconds, which is way quicker than the official figure, and it did the quarter mile in 16.5 seconds.
That was a fair bit quicker than my Renault 5 when you eventually got off the line properly. My car did 0 to 60 in 9 seconds dead, and it crossed the finish line in 17.1 seconds.
Well, as predicted, the eC3 was the slowest. 0 to 60 was 10.7 seconds, and it took me 18.2 seconds to finish the race. So I was a couple of seconds behind you in the BYD.
So the BYD won the drag race. That makes it the winner of this test, right?
Well, there are a few more things to consider, Doug. So let's talk first about costs and efficiency for this particular trip.
Yes, you are right, of course. And after the drag race, we drove back to London charged all 3 cars up to full so that we could calculate real-world efficiency figures for each one. And in total, on this trip, we covered 204.1 miles. The Dolphin Surf used 54.25 kilowatt hours, which on the day cost me £34.28. That means my average real-world efficiency was 3.8 miles per kilowatt hour, and that gives me a theoretical range from full to flat of 163 miles. So how does all of that compare to the eC3?
Well, the Citroen needed 57.69 kilowatt hours, which cost £36.66. My average efficiency was also quite a bit worse, at 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour, making for a theoretical range of 155 miles. But what about you, Will?
Well, the Renault 5 used just 52.8 kilowatt hours of electricity, so that was actually the least of all 3 cars. It was also the most efficient, and it managed 3.9 miles per kilowatt hour on the trip. And of course, because it used the least electricity, it was the cheapest. So I spent £33.63. Now, of course, that was using expensive public chargers, but on the screen now we are showing the figures if you were to charge at home at the current energy price cap, and also if you were to sign up to a cheap overnight tariff. Now, the theoretical range based on the efficiency I achieved on the trip doesn't quite match the BYD, but at 155 miles, it was actually identical to the eC3, which of course has a bigger battery and a longer official range.
So that's impressive for the Renault 5, but quite disappointing for the eC3.
It's not a brilliant result, is it, when it comes to real-world efficiency and range? It's also worth noting that the average charging rate of the eC3 was the slowest as well, and it's the slowest in a straight line, and it's generally the worst to drive of the 3.
But can it claw back some points when it comes to pricing? Let's run through those figures now. And in terms of list price, once you've factored in the discounts that are available now, the eC3 looks to be the cheapest to buy outright in cash. And then if you look at the total cost of ownership over 3 years, and that factors in things like predicted depreciation, insurance, servicing, the cost of electricity, then the eC3 does remain the cheapest of the 3 cars here. But that's only by about £100 over 3 years compared to the Renault. And the Dolphin Surf is more expensive than both by quite a big margin. And that's largely down to the fact that it's predicted to lose more of its value over those 3 years than the other 2 cars.
Yes, things do also change if you look at PCP finance. So if you put down a £309 deposit, slightly random amount, but that's the example we have, and you cover 6,000 miles a year on a 4-year term, then it's actually the Dolphin Surf which is the cheapest, costing £309 a month. The eC3 is the most expensive. That costs £343 a month, although that is only a couple of quid more than the Renault 5.
Considering most people will be buying these cars on a monthly finance agreement, it's not great for the eC3. And then when you add in the fact it's the least efficient, it also took the longest to charge on our test, and it's not the best to drive. I don't know about you guys, but it feels like it's in 3rd place.
Yeah, I think it has to come last, doesn't it? It does have the biggest boot, and it's the most spacious in the back. It's important to point those things out, but we're only talking small margins there, particularly compared to the BYD, and our research shows that most buyers looking for a small car like this don't actually care that much about practicality anyway.
So then that brings it down to the BYD Dolphin Surf and the Renault 5 for the win. And the BYD is cheaper on PCP, as we've just pointed out. It's got a slightly better range. The rear seats and the boot are better. And while all these cars have an 8-year warranty for the battery, the BYD has 6-year cover for all its other components as well, whereas the other 2 cars only offer 3-year cover. And remember, this is a range-topping version of the Dolphin Surf we're looking at here, so it's the best equipped as well.
It is, but the Renault 5 is far better on the road, particularly when it comes to ride comfort and handling. It also has a nicer interior, a better infotainment system, and on this trip at least it was slightly more efficient. And on top of all that, if you're buying outright, because of that slower predicted depreciation that we've already talked about, then it is likely to cost you quite a bit less in the long run. It is not our favourite version of the Renault 5 though. The comfort range offers a bit more flexibility for longer journeys because of its longer range of course, but also its faster charging. But this urban range is still a fantastic buy, particularly if most of your journeys are on the shorter side. With the Dolphin Surf, I think we probably would recommend the cheaper Boost version because that actually has a longer range than the range topping Comfort. And also if you're buying an eC3, I think we'd keep it as cheap as possible and go for the entry-level Plus, wouldn't we?
Absolutely. So there you have it. In this test, it's the Renault 5 that is the winner. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you want to see another one, then click up there and make sure you subscribe to our channel as well. And to read much more about these cars and every other car around, click on that link to go to whatcar.com.